My name is Zosia, and I appreciate your patience. There was a little bit of a time zone snafu because I'm over here in America, but not just that. Like, I kind of had a conceptualization of what it was, but recently I had to go to Colorado and my phone changed all the time zone things in my phone. So anyway, so my study was called Autistic Professionals Leading Paradigm Change, Moving Support from Normalization to Affirmation. And um, kind of the historical context of what's going on here is that I limited it to a look at the States, but I know it's parallel in a lot of other Western cultures where for about 200 years, if a disabled person was going to get support, the whole purpose was, okay, let's get this person more normal. How do we make you normal? And we're moving away from that, not just in the neurodiversity space. And that's been going on since the 70s, maybe even before. So that's just a drop of the historical context. I really dove into that, and the first three chapters are all about, the history and just placing this in history. But so then when I narrowed in and I looked at autism, and I used autism as kind of the case, but it really does apply to other neurocognitive differences. Um, and I said, okay, if we have an autistic kid and they're going to school, or even with autistic adults, the support systems are changing. Not fast enough. It's very slow, but they are there. There is a shift. We can see it. When we go to conferences, when teachers are getting trained, when we're looking in the mental health field. The problem is that normalization is still very entrenched. And so I asked autistic professionals, for example, autistic occupational therapists. There were 11 professionals in this study: occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, mental health, that was social workers, psychologists, counselors, and I had one autistic special education teacher. And I said, okay, we kind of, more and more so all the time, we get it that normalization has to stop. But so, um, A, what else do we do instead? And B, how do we get it to stop? So I wasn't surprised by the first two findings. The first two findings were very strong consensus on, we have to back up for a second and say, what is this normalization we're trying to get away from? And what is neurodiversity affirming support? And we are getting stronger and stronger consensus about that. So very, very briefly, normalization, it was very clear. They were, very strong list of things that professionals should not be doing. Okay, like taking away choice, um, anything that violates body autonomy, um, anything that, kind of enforces compliance. Okay. Um, and there was very clear consensus on what neurodiversity affirming support looks like: giving people choice, respecting difference, honoring sensory, providing means of communication, whatever that looks like, and not judging it. Um, but okay, so here's the problem. We could start doing all these neurodiversity affirming practices and policies in the support system, but there's a underlying issue, which is that the position of autistic people and other neurodivergent people in society is not changing. Okay, there's still an idea, an overarching idea, that this is sort of an abnormal way to be. It's an inferior way to be. So, for example, if I have a kid and they're going to occupational therapy, I could make the lights very sensory sensitive. I could give the kid a lot of choices. I could honor what goals they want to do. But when they walk out of the office, they're still inferior in society. So I looked at systems theory and how do systems change if we really want to change over this whole entire system. And systems theory suggests that it's the beliefs that have to change, the beliefs of a system. You can't just, for example, do some more sensory safe kind of therapy, for example. Um, the entire beliefs about autism, human diversity has to shift. What was fascinating to me is like I said, I kind of expected findings one and findings two, like strong consensus on what's normalization, strong consensus on what's neurodiversity affirming support. What jumped out in the data over and over and over and over again, they just kept saying it in a million ways that autistic people have to have access to autistic professionals. And I was like, what is that about? And they said it's not that non-autistic professionals have no role or that we're not grateful for their support, especially when they can become allies, but just over and over, I mean, it was resounding. And when I really sat with that and tried to, see, and then a light bulb went off, and I was like, that's what's going to change the system. Because imagine for a minute that we had these massive cohorts of autistic professionals all over the place, and we were seeding to them, and we said, yeah, you're the ones who can help decide what a good autistic life looks like. Well, then autism can't be an incompetence. You see, it starts to deconstruct those sticky beliefs that are preventing the system from changing completely. If we said, yeah, autistic people need autistic professionals to teach them how to be autistic, that's a totally different uh, frame, a totally different belief system. And so I'm suggesting by the results that, that, if we want to have neurodiversity affirming schools, if we want to have neurodiversity affirming practices and programs and support options, we need to figure out or sit with and discuss how can we have many more autistic professionals, because I think that that's what's going to get the system to start budging. And of course, I go into a lot more detail in the study, but that's a few minutes of a taste of it. So thank you for accommodating and allowing me to slide in here.